Hello everyone, thanks for coming outside with me today. Today I would like to talk about replacing your compound bows, string, and cables, when's the best time to do it, why you should do it, and the adverse effects of not doing it in an appropriate time frame. So first off, why you need to change your string and cables and do it on a relatively frequent basis. The reason why is just like you want to change the oil in your car. You're going to get the best performance out of your car when you change your oil every, 5 to 8,000 miles, something like that, depending on the wear and tear of your car and how much you use the engine and use the oil in the engine. The same thing is true of your bow, string, cables. If you're somebody like me who shoots a lot, several thousand shots a year, you're probably going to get 2, maybe 3 years out of your string and cable set. I'm on year 2 here with my Elite Energy 35 and my Elite Answer back there, and I'm probably going to end up replacing their string and cables maybe even before this season coming up in October, or definitely at the end of the season in January of 2020. But if you shoot a lot less than I do, you could probably get 3, 4, maybe even 5 years out of your string cables as long as they are maintained and not damaged prematurely before then. So there are many different types of premature wear and as well as natural wear and tear. As your string cables break down, the more and more you shoot them. The major stress points for every string cable on every bow is when they go around cams, around either wheels, where the serving, the piece of serving rather, is where you clip your arrow onto the string, typically in between the 2 knots of your D-loop, and any other place where it might come in contact with like a string stop or something else like that. Also, places in the string where you might have string silencers, or if you shoot with a peep, those areas are also put under greater stress and they might see more premature wear than others. Now, some string cable sets are served through the cable slide and some are not. Both my bows are not, so I definitely make sure to keep both of those cables as they go through the cable guard, that they are definitely waxed and that they are definitely well lubricated, so that way I don't get any premature hot spots and any premature wear. If your bow has a roller guard, those areas should definitely be served. If your cables are currently not served going through a roller guard, talk to your local pro shop and make sure that happens, so that way your bow is working at peak performance. Now, to understand why it's best to replace your string and cables under a couple year spectrum, 2 to 3 to 4, maybe even 5 years if you don't shoot that much, you first have to understand how a string is built. Strings are built in a continuous loop of material, and the only thing that holds that continuous string of material is the friction of the serving. So you have the friction of the serving up by the yokes if your bow has that, you have the friction of the center serving where you would knock the arrow, and all the servings of end loops that go around cam modules and cam posts. Over time, as you can imagine, that serving will start to loosen up and therefore lose its grip on those strands that go through to make up this endless loop. And the longer it sits and the longer it has time to lose its grip, the more dangerous it could potentially come as the strings are shot. Now, I can say from personal experience, I've never seen a perfectly healthy string, meaning there's no cuts or tears or really bad fuzziness of breaking strands through the string. I've never seen one blow up in a case or while it's hanging on the wall. Typically, it's when people start shooting it and shooting arrows that are really light, or putting it in a hunting situation and dragging it through brush, this, that, and the other thing. So the first rule of automatic replacement, like no questions asked, don't even think about trying to shoot it, is if you accidentally nick your string cable with a knife or broadhead, or it gets somehow nicked through briars or branches in the woods. As soon as you cut into that endless loop, you've now compromised more than that strand, you've now compromised all of the strands, and that needs to be immediately replaced. It should not be shot. It can be shot, but is definitely not a good idea. It's like driving your car with a quart load of oil. Yeah, the car is going to run, but you're going to end up damaging the engine. Now, a second time when you really need to start looking at replacing your string is when you start seeing overall fuzziness, not just at the peep and not just where you knock the arrow, but down by the string stop, in areas of the string that are exposed naturally. If it starts to really fuzz up and start looking like your wife's bath loofah, it's really time to change your string. Cables are also another indicator of this because they are put under a lot of tension, particularly through the cable slide or the roller guard. If they start getting fuzzy and the string is getting fuzzy, it's probably a good idea to change out. Now, a little bit of fuzz in a localized area of the string in particular, because it gets the most leverage and the most work because it's doing the actual forcing of the arrow down range. A little fuzz here and there is nothing to panic about. But if it's, like I said, if it's widespread across the entire string, if it's widespread across the string and cables, it is time to change your string and cables. Now, the best way to ensure that you don't have have an emergency need and you have to send your bow into the pro shop and have it be looked at for a couple of weeks while you wait for new string and cables to come in, is to make sure you're maintaining it, just like you'd maintain your car. The easiest and most fail-safe way is by using a premium bowstring wax. I personally use Bohning bowstring wax. This is Tex-Tite. It's really simple to apply. You just add a little bit onto the unserved part of your string cables. Do not apply any to your serving on either the string or cables, because again, this is a lubricant and we don't want it to lubricate and loosen that serving. So after you've applied just a little bit to the exposed parts of your string and cables, you can just take your fingers and rub it in briskly. You'll feel it melt as it warms up on the strands of the string cables. It will melt into the fibers and keep them lubricated and not keep them from drying out, getting that dry rot and helping that premature fuzziness that you start to see throughout the season. As an added extra tip, if you see your D-loop is starting to get fuzzy, because that's where we often clip our release onto the string. So if you see that fraying prematurely, immediately get that replaced. It's super cheap, it's super easy. You can get your own spool of your own D-loop material, do it at your house. There's plenty of tutorials on YouTube. I have one myself and I'll put it in the links of the description below. So that's all for this video. I hope it was informative for you. If you ever have any questions about bowstring, cable maintenance, bows and arrows in general, archery, hunting in general, hit me up here on YouTube. You can also check me out on Facebook and Instagram. You can send me a message there. I even have my email in the description below. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery, enjoy the sport of archery hunting if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation, and we'll get to see you next time.